Hello, listeners. Welcome to this week's episode of the Naked Coach Collective. And today you've got myself and the lovely Bee, looking beautiful and pink and summery today, I would say. Welcome, Bee. And so, no Ian today. He's got other things to do.
I don't know, letting us down.
Always busy, that man. But anyway, you'll have the two of us, and it's going to be a good session talking about what coaching was when we started to us and how it's developed and how our roles within coaching has developed to incorporate our lives. And it's been a journey, right, V? We've known each other for a couple of years now, more than, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Coaching brought us together.
Yes, it
So
did.
what did you go into coaching with a view to do?
Oh, so the view to coach. So I had a business when I started training as a coach, and it was always the thought that the business would run alongside a coaching business because mine was I was particularly wanting to coach in body confidence, self love, increasing just your general confidence. And because I had a boutique, that sort of felt like it would work really, really well because realistically, I was doing it on a daily basis to most women that came in and tried clothing and stuff on. Unfortunately, COVID played a big part in the sort of demise of a lot of businesses, including mine. And I already had the coaching skills then, and I was adamant that I could then move the goalposts, and the coaching would become my full-time business. And I think very like I'm an all throw myself in kind of girl, and I think we all threw ourselves into it. It was new, exciting, we were really enjoying it, and I'm not saying I don't enjoy it now, but what I'm saying is at that point it was like I think there was still an element of this promise that it would be, you put yourself out there and you do lots of work and it would sort of take off. And I think the reality of that is very different. I think there's a lot of hard work that goes into getting yourself noticed. And I mean, it's a challenge. There isn't, coaching is now a really quite a big thing. It's around quite a lot. I see lots of coaches doing different things and different types of things. And I think to really sort of what do they call it? The top 1% of successful coaches. There's just so many factors, so many factors that make that happen. And the thing for me was I needed an income. And so I had to make the decision to get a job, which I did, and I carried on with coaching, albeit like all of us, I think, had a bit of a niche crisis, change, did a few other, yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, it's been a roller coaster without a shadow of a doubt. And maybe along the way, listen to too many people. You can, you'd get recommended this podcast and that podcast and this person and that person and this book and that book. And, and maybe sometimes you just do too much. You just listen too much. You just read too much. I'm a fan of always having knowledge, but I think my biggest thing, the biggest fan I am of listening to myself. Other people might have more knowledge in business or more knowledge in finances or whatever, but actually you are the person who knows you the best. And I think I found that out because coaching, like changing your coaching needs to try and suit a market to earn money as opposed to doing it because it's something that you're truly passionate about. I don't think is the greatest reason to change niche. And yeah, so then I had an opportunity to apply for a role that would allow me to be employed and coach. And that really appealed to me, to use the skills that I've got and to do it in a different way. It is a very different role that I do. So let me just make this clear: I'm a facilitator. I'm not classed as a coach. So facilitating is exactly that. I facilitate workshops, so I don't tell people I'm not an advice service. This is about working together to ask those questions to find out what they already know, and then ask but then open questions to explore more things. And maybe I do have some like knowledge that I share. So it's a very different role. And when I work one to one, so I do group work and I work one to one. The one to one is very much more of a coaching scenario because it is a one to one situation. But I don't do it like we would usually do it. So with you and I, we would talk to our clients mostly online, and that would be how the session runs. My sessions are all in person and they are interactive sessions. So I have stuff going on the walls, and we put stuff up and we uncover stuff. And yeah, so it's a different way of doing it. And it's really interesting because what I work in is prevention of homelessness, and I work it like dealing with sort of um, housing, tenancy bills, benefits, budgeting, all that kind of stuff. But actually, there's an underlying thing that I've noticed, and I work with all different ages, okay, and all different walks of life. The biggest underlying thing that I notice that we also work on as part of the skills set that we work with is underconfidence,
Mm.
lack of confidence, um, never and being. I mean, obviously, upbringing has a huge part, plays a huge part in that. It really does, without realizing it. I'm not saying that any parents, I'm not saying it's bad, but actually, I think there is this underlying thing about British people as well that we don't tell ourselves we're good at things. We're very quick to tell ourselves when we're rubbish at something or when we've done something wrong, but we're really poor at recognizing when we're good at things. And yet, I think if you go to somewhere like America, you will listen, so many people will tell you that they're bloody amazing at everything. And I think there's that halfway house. And what I always say to people that I'm working with is we're all unique individuals. We're here for a reason and we bring our own set of unique skills. Okay. Now we've all got crossover skills. D and I, you and I, D. Sorry, we've got skills that are in both of us. But we also have our individuality skills. But also we might use those skills in a different way to each other. And I think and just getting people to recognise the fact that everything you do in the course of a day, on a normal day, I'm not talking about like being on a normal day, from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed, there are skills you've had to learn to be able to do those things.
Yes.
Yeah. And we take it for granted that everybody has those skills. Well, actually, not everybody does. Not everybody can read, not everybody can write, not everybody can do maths, not everybody has the ability to be able to organise their day, to be at appointments on time, to dress themselves, to wash themselves, to go shopping, to cook. These are all skills. And we just go, oh, yeah, but I do them anyway. And that's where I think we start with confidence. Because if someone had have asked me 10, 15 years ago what skills you've got, I would have answered the same as the people I work with answer. Oh, I haven't got any, I don't think.
So you work with your clients or the people that you work with to identify those skills,
Yeah,
to identify what's transferable about the knowledge and the and what they could do
yeah,
in that skill
yeah,
into other areas of their life.
correct.
And so doing, you're building their confidence as well, because they now know that actually getting to a place on time means that they've got time management, they've got organization skills, they've
Yeah,
got preparation skills. They've got
yeah,
a lot of things to do
yeah.
with that simple thing. So
Mm.
that's wonderful. And do you have any sort of moments that you think, oh gosh, that was really nice. That person has moved on from an hour ago when
Yeah,
we
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is nice to see people go out with more confidence,
yeah
more knowledge, and the way we do it, it is. I mean, I work very restoratively. Um, we work very so yeah, it's all about listening and restoring it's just a really nice way of working. It's an unusual way of work. I don't think I've ever worked for a company that actually has values that actually uphold them, if I'm
right
being totally honest. They
yeah
expect staff to, but the management don't have to, or the company doesn't have to. I love the fact that I do work for a small social enterprise that does that.
yeah
I think I'm very lucky in that respect. And in terms of working as a coach for being employed, um, I think one of the things lots of other coaches will say is, like when I came on board to be a coach, I wanted to earn really big money as well, like everyone else, and that there was this thing that you could, and I'm not saying that you can't, but I think there is a smaller percentage that do earn a really high living out of it. And from an employee point of view, you're never gonna be like earn the kind of money that some of the coaches out there, the top sort of 1% coaches out there do, not in employment. But I think also there has to be that everybody has a background, a life that they have to fund as well, if you know what I mean.
yes
So I think what I would say is you probably won't get the kind of fees in employment for coaching that you would like to charge privately. And I think the only other thing that it made me realize, because I thought it'd be great, I could have this and another and my own business.
mm,
And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I am some days when I've done 4 back-to-back one-to-ones or I facilitated a workshop, whatever, my brain space for coaching is not there. So that's a bit of a challenge for me in terms of me working out where that goes, how I go forward with all that information.
yeah
But ultimately, I'm really lucky to be doing the job with a skill that I've learned that I love.
brilliant wow thank you so much. I did make a few notes if I
Yeah,
could, right? So you know I love this thing that you said, listen to yourself.
yeah,
you know um and we're all guilty of getting information from so many different areas,
yeah,
and what you've done is you've got your information and you've made them part of you and you're listening, and now, or you haven't made, you've taken what you wanted and you've not
yeah.
rejected what you didn't want, and
Hmm.
you're at this place where you're now listening to yourself. And that is a similar, I can see a comparison with that, because I, like you, get my information from so many places,
Yeah,
courses that I've paid for, or
mm,
podcasts, or
yeah,
all sorts of different levels of
yeah,
expertise. And what I've found is the things that are right for me are the things that I hear in all of these other resources that I'm
mm,
using and utilizing. So, I went to a meeting this week, a training meeting this week, and I
mm,
found that they were saying a lot of things that I already have learned in other areas,
mm,
and it just like solidifies that actually this is the right way for me.
yeah,
And I like it. For me, it feels like a holistic approach,
mm,
coming from all angles, looking at all areas of my life. Like, we do the dream with Ian, don't we? And that is that's a non-business type of thing. However, I see parallels from that in what I do in my so different from you, I haven't gone down the employed route, and my clients are private clients.
mhm,
But where I found the difference between what I came into coaching to do, coming on 3
mhm.
years ago to now, is this thing about niche. The your we've
That
talked.
we spend so long on trying to like narrow it down. Yeah,
I think niche is important if you are really going to target your marketing,
yeah,
which is what all of the business gurus, the marketing
yeah,
everybody says to do. But it's much easier said than done, right?
yes,
So what I've found is that as I have developed my my own life,
Mm.
my niche has developed as well. And where and I took a, you know, readiness for today, I took a kind of like
Mm.
audit of my
Mm.
clients and people I've worked with or people I've worked with. Um, and I realized that they go from age in their 20s, early 20s, young people who are starting out looking for direction, looking for which way to go. Not that I would offer direction, I would offer a safe place and a growing space
Mm.
for them to develop what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Up into 60s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, well, how do I find a niche out of this? Mostly female, but I have, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I have had coaching
Yeah.
clients male. Um, and I realized that actually it's the people who have come through me organically, come to me through organic sources, wherever they've seen me, they've spoken to
Mm.
someone or they've seen something on social media or whatever, and they come and have a conversation. And like you've tailored your facilitating coaching to what you need, what those clients need, that's what I do.
Mm.
But there's one thing that I have found with every single coaching conversation I've had, especially at the start, is that clients come to us because they need to they need to be heard.
Mm.
So there's
Yes.
something
Yeah.
that they have to say that they can't say to their friends, their families, their teachers, their dog, or
Mm.
they just can't. And when they talk to a coach in a safe, exclusive place,
Yeah.
secure place, that's when they start to understand what it is they're looking for.
Mm.
And every single one of them, I can't say I've been in a coaching session where somebody hasn't wanted to tell me something that they haven't been able to say to anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always something. And even just that release, I might not do anything further in that session with them.
Mm.
And the fact that they have managed to say something, to get it out, to voice whatever it was, it may not be bad. It could be great stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be really good stuff. It could be
Mm.
anything. But that is such a such a central thing. So um I find that is a really good place to start. Also, what it means is that I then am able to then develop my um program for them on a very,
Mm.
very individual basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it is about yeah, so tailoring things, but I think there's also a very privileged element we that there are skills that we have that mean that people do want to talk with us, do trust us with information. And like you, when I was doing my niche and stuff, mine was sort of really clear that it would be female, it would be probably 40 to 60, etc. When I took on the role that I took on, and then realised the different accommodations, like supported accommodations I'd be working in, and how vastly different the age groups are. And I was really concerned about the fact that I would be working with 18 to 25s and not having children of my own. I wasn't sure that I'd be able to do that, that I'd be able to connect. And I mean, I have nieces and nephews that I absolutely adore, but just wasn't sure. And if anything, I've utterly surprised myself um, in that I am able to draw connections with them and have conversations and um, facilitate like the sessions and coach
Mm,
um, them to see their all the values that they have and all the skills that they have. That's a privilege, but equally I'm then working with males only in a sort of, I suppose, 20 to 60 setting. So you're absolutely right. You realise that actually I think a lot of coaching is about connection.
mm,
It's about what you're putting out there, and if people see it, connect with you, find what you're saying of value, or are interested, and it interests them. I think that's where coaching works really well. It's about connections, and I remember something way back when we were coaching about them saying, just because someone comes on to chat to you about becoming a client, you don't have to accept them
Mm.
if you don't feel either one, that they're ready, or two, that you have a connection. And at that point, I wouldn't have believed that, because it would have been about like growing a business and financials. But they're absolutely right, because if you don't have a connection and if they're not ready, it's so much harder. The work is so much harder.
And also, you then don't get a positive result,
You
right?
don't.
Those two things, the connection and then being ready, are vital. And I think if you talk to any coaches who have had clients come in and go in and come and go,
Mm,
most will say there have been conversations
mm,
where you knew it wasn't going to go anywhere.
mm,
I mean, I can think of two off the top of my head where
yeah,
I knew it wasn't going anywhere because you can identify quite early on when a client or a potential client is looking to change and willing to do what's
the
necessary,
work. Yeah, yeah,
because there's a different way of speaking.
yes,
There is,
yeah,
there's a there's a nuance in the way that they
mm,
speak, that they're ready to take action or they're not.
yeah,
In terms of the connection, I mean, funnily enough, the two people that I didn't think that we had a connection with, were both male.
yeah,
Um, and it was a combination of both of
mm,
those things. I didn't sense that they were ready. And I think they, it creates the feeling of, well, actually, there's no connection because,
mm.
I go in and I say, coaching is not 1 hour a week.
No,
Is an immersive thing. You've got to take away what you get out of that hour sessions and implement it.
yeah.
And if you
It's the
don't,
implementation.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is. It is.
yeah, and people think it's a quick fix, because we live in a world of quick fixes.
Yeah,
And actually, the reality is nothing changes overnight when you've been living with the way you are, or the way you behave, or the way you do things for what, the best part of your life. If you're older, and even if you're not, you've still done, it's almost like you have an auto default.
you do. Well, no, it's not almost like you definitely do.
We do. We have a default that we just go back to the same things that we've been used to doing, because they're comfortable, because they don't push us, because we don't have to consider. And sometimes it's more about, we think we want something, but the reality of it
On
is
the,
quite scary.
well, also because you're still alive, right? Remember,
Mm,
your brain's main function to keep you alive is survival.
mm,
So if you've got to this stage and you're sitting in front of me or you and you're
yeah.
still alive, making changes is going to tell your brain, oh my God, she's
Mm.
doing something different. I've
This is
survived
not
that
comfortable. Yeah,
now. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
it's got to actually actively work
Mm,
against you. So you have to put in a lot of work, effort,
yeah,
and the right sort of energy to
mm,
change that, because otherwise you will. It's like yo-yo dieting, you know.
yeah.
And I know that because I have been dieting up and down my whole. It's not. I wouldn't call it dieting. I always call it a lifestyle change. But obviously, it has to hit a point of, actually, I'm
Mm-hmm,
making these changes. They are in the long term going to be beneficial to me. And then you've got to get over that period of time where your brain's saying, change is bad, change is bad, change is bad.
mm,
It's going to, it's not going to help your survival.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
could, it's, so this is where a coach comes in, because this is where
Mm,
that constant in your back of your mind, oh, so coach, so this is what I'm doing with my coaching, and this is the
mm.
reason why. Okay.
Yeah, I think, and as a coach, I think when I first started out, because I'd done so much work on myself, I was like, oh, I've got it all sorted. This is great. Now I can go and help other people. And then life happens,
Mhm.
as you and I both know. And actually, you realise you haven't got it all sorted, because sometimes you'll still default back, even though you've been doing it for ages, like better stuff for ages. And other things come along that you haven't been faced with before. and then you're navigating those as well. So I think as a coach, having some form of coaching, even if that's not like around what you do, even if that's just coaching for you for a offload space or a, yeah, I think that's sort of like so key to our well-being, because coaching is quite tiring. You do a session with somebody because you're really listening, and really listening is very different to listening, as we've learned. So when you're really listening and concentrating on somebody else and making sure you're listening so that you ask the right questions, that takes, a lot of like concentration. And now I realize, doing it as regularly as I do it, that actually it is tiring and you do need to give yourself space.
And time to recoup.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
You made me think of something that one of my clients said to me way back in the early days, and it was
Mm,
so lovely. I think I even made a social media post about it, right?
yeah,
She says, you have two-tier listening. And I'd
yeah,
never heard that before, and I thought, that's so nice, and I think it is. It's two-tier listening, because you're not just listening, you're absorbing, and and also what we don't do, or we try not to do as coaches, is try to formulate our response while we're listening. So you have to have a skill of listening wholeheartedly, properly,
mm,
and then,
mm,
you know,
mm. I think the big difference between our coach, like our private coaching when we do it privately, and it's probably because we're working with a different kind of client.
mm,
And what I mean by that is that, like, so for me, there is structure. There is like serious structure to my coaching and facilitating in my employed life. Whereas in our other business, in our own businesses, the structure, there is a structure to coach, of course, and there's lots of different structures you can work with and that, but there's not a one size fits all in our coaching,
no, no,
and
not
that's the difference.
no, no. But that's what makes us grow as coaches, right? So
Mm,
every client that we have, or every person that we speak to, and um you grow, your
yeah.
skill set grows. Every experience I have with a client means that I am going on to the next client with
Mm,
even more in my toolbox, even more every single time, because you can't predict a session.
no.
You cannot, you can write a few notes to go into, because just,
Mm,
especially if you've got continual weekly sessions with
yeah.
someone, you can say, well, how did this go? How did that go? What did you
Yeah,
learn?
it's like follow up, isn't it? Yeah.
All these sorts of things, right? But you can't predict a session at all.
No.
And for me, that's what I love about it.
Mm,
Kind of,
yeah.
because I was a teacher, right? So primary school
Yeah.
teacher, very prescribed. So
Yeah.
I mean, I had to write um, lesson plans that were
Hmm.
long,
Mm,
or if Ofsted were coming in, we'd have to write a really detailed plan
mm.
of how the class is going to go. And you've got 30 kids. I mean,
You
how,
have no idea how it's going to go. Exactly. Yeah.
right? So,
Mm.
so I'm used to that. But the fact that I don't do that now, I mean,
You don't have to have that structure is, yeah.
yeah, I actually really, really love it.
I
So,
think sometimes also when you don't have a structure, like, and you don't have like, the conversation naturally flows without the person realizing they're talking to you about things
yeah.
that they didn't necessarily come into the conversation, didn't necessarily come to the session to say, but it just naturally flows in a directions in
You direct it, right? There is,
yeah, that's what I mean. But it naturally flows into, so they might come in thinking they want to talk about X, but
yeah,
end up talking about Y,
yeah.
because we've, not because of anything we've done, but with the navigation of the session, that's just where it's gone. That's where it's taken it.
And that's where they needed to go,
Yes. And
because,
sometimes we'll want to talk about X because we don't want to talk about Y, but we actually need to talk about Y and not X.
and also, yes, exactly that, because um, they feel that the why that you need to talk about, but they don't want to. They feel like that's already done.
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes we think that, okay, so we're talking about say, a relationship,
Mm,
and we're talking about a relationship with a friend,
mm,
and that certain things, they've made certain assumptions, but you have to
yeah.
go back and you have to look at those assumptions, and
Mm,
that's when they think, "Oh, okay, so
mm,
when she did this, this is what it could have meant, or this is what, and that's
yeah.
why I'm feeling like I'm feeling now." So it's a very beautiful thing. Yeah, yeah.
Mm, mm,
I mean, I did write as well that where my client base is changing a lot, in life,
yeah.
and our life takes over. I know being there's that life taking over is. I mean, I'm very immersed in my coaching and what I do, so my life does make an impact in
Yeah.
in who and how and when and all that I coach. Um, and last week's, if you're a regular listener, you'll have heard that last week's episode was me talking about losing my father,
Mm,
and it's it's been a journey for me,
yeah.
but I really feel as though the circumstances around his passing and how we all dealt with it as a family and me on my own personal level, um, has helped me to grow again even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while I really do believe that every single grief story is different,
Hmm.
even mine and my sisters or mine and my brothers, where we've had, it's a different
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it's I feel more willing. I mean, people in the past have come to me and said, "Look, I've lost so and so. I'd like to talk about grief," and I have gone away and tried to find somebody else for them to speak to because I wouldn't have considered myself the right person. But it feels,
Mm,
it's so weird. You're making your life events in your life add to your
yeah.
toolbox,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I don't ever want to separate my life from my work. I like
Mm.
it. It's
You learn from both and you implement it in both.
exactly.
And it helps you, supports you in both.
Yeah,
That's, I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
even in the type of employed coaching that I do, so
Mm,
vastly different to anything I would have done with my own business. But
yeah.
um, but at the same time, I've learned so much from it, so much that
Yeah.
that has enriched me in a really good way, and has helped me be more. What's the word? More objective, more open, more understanding, and I already felt that I was particularly good at that anyway.
Mm,
But yeah, and I, if anybody now asks me my skills, but one of the first ones would be people.
mm.
That's my skill. I just I don't know what it is, and we all have different skills, but um, I can just have a conversation with anyone, anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Nice. You
Um,
are a people person for
I
sure.
am. Yeah, I am. And yeah, I never thought that was a skill. Never realized that was a skill in
Oh,
any way, shape, or
yes,
form.
it
So
is.
that's really like I said, from me, that's, one of the skills I have. And I can't explain it any more than that, is that just naturally have this ability and listen even when I maybe don't understand or it's not something that I'm into, but I'm happy to listen and I'm happy to learn from others about things that I don't know about, or maybe they don't really interest me. It doesn't matter whether they interest me or not. It's all about the learning process.
Mm. And everything will be different. People will come to you in any of our circumstances, and they will tell you things that don't interest you
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah,
or
yeah,
are new to you,
yeah.
or but that's part of it.
It's all the learning that you do, and you
Sorry.
learn the way you. So when you're learning, you're not just learning for your head, like learning, and for your job learning. You're learning for yourself as well.
Mm. But also, I was going to say, going back one step, is that that's
Mm,
where professionalism comes in.
mm,
Because ultimately, we are professionals in our
mm.
roles, and the people that you speak to and the people that I speak with, we have a professional role to play,
Yeah.
and that means that we listen, we learn, we incorporate, we take on board what they say,
Mm,
we respect everything they say. Even though we may not always understand it, we respect their
Mm.
their right to say whatever they
Mm.
say. And that's the professionalism in it. And I think
Mm.
that's another reason why people come into coaching sessions and say, oh my God, I didn't think I'd ever be able to get that off my chest.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I never seen it from that perspective. That's what I get a lot. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that.
Yes.
You know, those kinds of things. And I think and that's the beauty of coaching. It's asking the questions that we don't ask ourselves. Because and asking questions to others that they won't ask themselves, and probably the people who love and support them won't ask them because they're uncomfortable questions.
Mm. And
Um,
they don't know to ask them.
no, exactly, because
The value of what the answer will bring.
exactly. So I think if we're talking about the reality of coaching, the one thing I would say is if you're going to train and qualify as a coach, make sure you love it.
Yeah.
It's the big thing. If you're doing it for money, there's easier ways out there to make money. If I'm being totally honest with you,
There are.
but if you're doing it because you love it, don't think that once you've qualified, that's it either. Grow, learn, change, move with the times, have a plan, but be open to realizing that things come along for a reason. So just because they might not fit into your plan doesn't mean they're not right for you.
Yeah.
So it's
Have
being
that
able to,
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Have
have
that.
that openness to go,
Yeah.
okay, so that wasn't in my plan.
Mm.
How would that help me? Would it be worth learning? Will it be worth me? You know, it's like things, I often believe that things are sent our ways for reasons. Um, and those reasons are either because we need them in our lives or we need to learn something from them. Or yeah, so there can be different reasons that things come into our lives, and I think sometimes we're very dismissive of things that come into our lives. And hindsight for me has given me that thought that actually that probably happened for a reason, and I wasn't listening, I wasn't tuned in, I wasn't considering what it was there for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also you might have the reason for why things happen
Mm,
maybe will come to you years later or
exactly. Yeah.
well after the event.
Yeah.
We can't always all be in tune with everything that's happening to us right
We're
now.
not, because we our concentration gets
Yeah.
taken by other things. So
Yeah. And life has so many facets, there's
mm,
coming at you from, especially, I mean, before we started recording, we said, if we had
yeah.
known that life would be so complicated in our 50s,
Oh,
might have done a bit more prep work beforehand.
I might well have done. I might, yeah, absolutely. I honestly kept thinking when people were saying about 50s, when I was like in my sort of mid 30s to late 30s, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, I really didn't enjoy my 20s to my 30s. So I'm going to be fine when I get to my 50s because I'm really growing into me. And oh my God, yeah, life's tough.
Life is.
Really tough. And I know everybody's is different, and some people go, "Oh, 50, I loved it," and whatever. And I'm not saying I'm not loving it, but it's challenging. It's really challenging. And there's a part of me that wants to get through, get to the other side, and experience the other side of it.
The glorious 60s awaits. Oh, darling. Right,
That
listen,
is the hope. That is the hope.
let's let's wrap it up there. Let's wrap it up there. I think we've talked a little bit, quite a lot about the reality, what coaching actually is, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast episode today. Please do like, please do share, please do subscribe. It really does mean a lot to us, and we've been doing this a year now, V, and
I know.
I
I
know
know.
it's very exciting. But your likes, your shares, your comments, whatever, they just motivate us to continue. So we'd love to hear from you. Anyway, right, no Ian today, so let's see how we can do this. B, ready? Until next time, be there,
Be
be
bear.
and
Be naked.